I've often been sort of criticised talking about energy, so I sort of had to write all of this down because I know my mind will go blank if I don't. But you're probably wondering why you've got a fashion designer standing up here talking about nuclear. But I've actually been campaigning against it for the last 30 years with T-shirts, worldwide nuclear ban now, but it's tragically even more relevant today than it was then. It didn't work. I love CND, I love Ban the Bomb, I love the Stop the War Coalition, but we didn't ban the bomb. You know, see Trident. We didn't stop the war. We invaded Iraq, although 2 million people in the UK and 126 million people in the rest of the world marched against it. So far, our campaigning, lovely as it is, has failed to achieve its objectives. We need to change and upgrade and update our tactics. Marches, T-shirts, demos, direct action, like the one today, will achieve nothing unless we engage in the democratic process. Can't you hear? Sorry. Shall I start from the beginning? No. Okay. Did you hear the last bit? Marches, T-shirts, demos? Okay, fine. Democracy means government by the people, for the people. Millions of people have died, even in the recent past, for us to still have it in this country, and yet we're letting it slip through our fingers. We're being led by the nose, insufficiently informed, into underwriting as taxpayers an astronomically expensive and incredibly dangerous nuclear future. We need to be in command of the facts, yet we're not. Why are we insufficiently informed? Because the nuclear industry is deeply in bed with government and the media. Gordon Brown's brother has been in charge of media for EDF one way and the other since 2004. Andrew Brown joined French energy firm EDF as head of media relations, and as of 2011 he held the position of director of corporate communications. The supposedly independent media that thinking people would naturally trust is also littered with key people working for EDF. Isn't this a huge conflict of interest? Have you ever wondered why the BBC seems so pro-nuclear? It really doesn't help that Chris Patton, director of the BBC, holds 2 posts at EDF and has for some time. Diana Coyle is vice chair of BBC Trust. She also works for EDF. And not only that, she's a BBC trustee and married to the BBC's technology correspondent, Rory Sellon-Jones. She's also an advisor to the Treasury. Will Hutton, a British author and columnist, is also in the pay of EDF. He's a former editor of the UK Observer newspaper. Sir Richard Lambert was appointed on the 6th of May 2011 to the advisory panel. He's the ex-editor of the Financial Times. At one point there were 19 PR agencies in the UK paid by the nuclear trying to persuade us that nuclear is a good thing. We here know that nuclear isn't the answer. Putting aside for a moment the fact that it can't exist without huge taxpayer subsidies, the waste issue is being extremely underplayed. Radioactive nuclear waste remains dangerous, has a half-life of 150,000 years. No human artifact has survived that long. Not a crumb, not a scratch. And yet there are ongoing attempts to find disposal sites for it in the UK. According to the British Geological Survey, the UK has approximately 200 earthquakes a year, mostly small, but occasionally up to 5.4 on the Richter scale, big enough to do structural damage. And there's certainly more earthquakes this century than last. We've actually had 2 already this year. So 150,000 years times 200 would mean that repositories would have to be strong enough to withstand 30 million earthquakes, amongst other things, corrosion, sea level rise, etc. It doesn't stand up. There's no excellent technology safe enough to contain it. There's nowhere to put it, and there never will be. So, back to tactics. Politicians, shame they're not there today, are a vested interest group, only in politics to get re-elected. Our political system is such that, once in power, they routinely fail to represent the views of the people who put them there in the first place. We need to call them to task. We need to hit them where it hurts. Letters threatening to withdraw your vote if they don't represent your views are something that they take a lot of notice of. So, we need not just to write to our MPs, but also to the Prime Minister, the Cabinet, and the Shadow Cabinet as well. If you don't know who your MP is, go to theyworkforyou.org and enter your postcode. It's all there. Those of us who are against the nuclear renaissance, as kick-started by a go-ahead on Hinkley C, could write, "We need an irreversible cross-party commitment to a non-nuclear, low-carbon energy policy for the UK, exploiting the UK's phenomenal renewable potential, creating industries and jobs in the UK. Those of us who are for nuclear should at least demand transparent, truly informed public debate, given that so far it hasn't been, followed by, if this is still a democracy, a referendum. This is one of the most important decisions this country will ever make. The future of this country and the world itself for the next 150,000 years is in your hands. And to anybody who's going to wail, but there's no plan B, let's copy Germany." Thank you very much.